What's the future of the Senate after 2026? Let's talk about it. Hello everybody, welcome to Politics Enhanced. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. And without further ado folks, today we're going to talk about what the 2026 Senate election could look like and how this could impact the Senate moving forward. Before I begin, however, I kindly ask that you please like, comment, and subscribe. Smash that notification bell down below so you don't miss another video. And without further ado, let's get started. So first and foremost folks, we're going to fill in these safe Republican states, the states that will be going Republican no matter what. If you nuke them, they are going Republican and it's not even close. Yes, Texas, the Deep South, Florida, Alaska, all going safe Republican no matter what. I'm also going to say Ohio and Iowa are also going safe Republican. These two states, they used to be the pinnacle of battleground states back in the 2000s and 2010s. Now they're ruby red, and it's going to be really hard for Democrats to win back those states for a long time. And already we're looking at the map, and as you can see, Republicans already have the majority at 51 seats, and we haven't even filled in the remaining states, which is quite impressive. So Republicans are at a huge advantage with all the Republican favorable states voting in this cycle. But now we're going to focus on the Democrat states. These are the safe states that will be voting Democrat no matter what, and there are only a few safe Democrat states this cycle, about 6 to be exact. So looking at the map, the remaining states will be states that are under 10 points and could go either way. So first of all, we're going to start in the Northeast and we're going to focus on the likely states, which there are a couple. So with the state of New Hampshire, I do think that Shaheen is going to win this state, but it won't be by her 2020 margin. Although New Hampshire is a likely Democrat state, I do believe that it will be a 7 to 8 point win for Shaheen over any of the Republican candidates. However, I do believe that Chris Sununu may do better and he could actually make it much closer. And the reason why I say this is New Hampshire is a bit of an interesting state. It is very elastic, yet it's also kind of a lean Democrat state. It's becoming more similar to Minnesota in the sense that it votes Democrat but by varying margins. And we saw in 2024 that Donald Trump actually did really good in the state of New Hampshire. He lost it by 3% to Kamala Harris, but I don't want to use the 2024 election as a barometer to the 2026 Senate election, because oftentimes how a presidential candidate does in a state during a presidential election doesn't necessarily mean that that will translate over in down ballot races, although Donald Trump is unique in the sense that he can mobilize his base to go out and vote if he gets involved. So we'll just have to see with the state of New Hampshire. And one more thing I wanted to add on New Hampshire is the fact that if Chris Sununu decides to run, it absolutely could make the state of New Hampshire closer. I don't know if he could flip it outright, but he could make it 3 to 4 points for Shaheen instead of 6 to 8 points. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We're really far out from the 2026 Senate election, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, Maine is going to be the reversal of New Hampshire. Maine is going to be a likely Republican state. Susan Collins won by 8 in 2020, which was a very blue favorable year, Democrat favorable year. And I do think that even though she won by 8 points in 2020, which was much closer than her win in 2014, which was like 20 points, I do believe that in 2026, Collins will probably get a 6 to 9 point win this time around, especially if it's a Republican favorable environment. But at a bare minimum, she's going to get ahead by 5%. She will win the state of Maine by 5% at a bare minimum. Next, let's go down to New Jersey, where we have Cory Booker, who's running for a third term. Cory Booker is popular in the state of New Jersey. However, I will say that New Jersey has trended Republican in recent years. I'm not saying that's going to be a red state or that we're going to get a Republican senator, but what I am saying is that the state of New Jersey could be closer than recent years, and I do believe that Cory Booker will win comfortably, but at a bare minimum, he'll probably win by 8 to 9 points, and maximum it'll be a 12 to 13 point win for Cory Booker. So it could shift and move closer as time continues, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, for the state of Virginia, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting seats in the cycle, because you have Glenn Youngkin, who is term limited. In Virginia, you can only serve one term as governor. That's just in their constitution. So there is potential for Youngkin to run. And if Mark Warner doesn't run, which there's speculation that he might not run again, then there is some serious potential that Glenn Youngkin could be the next senator from the state of Virginia. And he isn't really a MAGA Republican. He's not really affiliated with Trump, which typically I think would harm Republicans. But in the state of Virginia, I think that would really help Glenn Youngkin. He is very popular. He's well liked in the state of Virginia. And if he decides to run, especially in an open seat after being the most recent governor in the state of Virginia, absolutely this could be a state that gives us a Republican governor. However, assuming that Mark Warner decides to run, run, even if it's against Glenn Youngkin. I do believe that the state of Virginia would probably be a 5-point win for Mark Warner. Maybe you could see a 3-point win if it's a really good night and Glenn Youngkin mobilizes his base to come out and support him if he's popular enough, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. But keep your eyes on Virginia, because that could be a very important election in 2026. Now we're going to talk about the lean states, which there are a few. So we're going to move west to east, and we're going to start with the great state of New Mexico, because New Mexico almost voted for Trump. It was a 6-point win for Harris, and the reason why I say that is not to say that that's going to translate over to 2026, but there is something to be said about how Hispanics are trending, and the data points to the fact that the Hispanics are trending more to the Republican Party versus the Democrat Party. In a state like New Mexico that's heavily Hispanic, this could absolutely help the Republican candidate, whoever it may be, if it's Mark Ronchetti or someone else, get over the finish line. However, I will say that in 2020, Lujan won by 6 points, which is pretty close, especially for a Democrat favorable year. So if Ronchetti runs again, it absolutely could be a 3 to 4 point win for Lujan. It could just get closer, or it could be a flip. However, I do think New Mexico is trending more Republican, but we're just gonna have to watch and see what happens in the great state of New Mexico. Now, if we head up north to the state of Minnesota, I do think it'll be the same deal. I think Smith will win. Minnesota is a Democrat state, although it's also very elastic. Last time around, Smith won by an 8% margin. So if it's a more favorable year for the Republicans and Donald Trump isn't as disapproved of as he was during his first term, you absolutely could see a scenario where Minnesota is a 3 to 4 point victory for the Democrats, as opposed to a larger margin. And now we have North Carolina, which is our next lean state. Now, Tom Tillis ran here in 2020 and he barely held on, but he's running for a third term. I think this time around it could be a 3% victory for Tom Tillis. North Carolina is one of those states that seems to always escape the grip of the Democrats. No matter how much money or resources they put into the state, it's kind of like the titanium R state, if you will, and it just keeps voting Republican with the exception of the gubernatorial election. But let's be honest, the governor choice wasn't that good and people weren't really enthused to come out and vote for him. So North Carolina will be a lean Republican state, and that leaves us with the two closest states as of now, Michigan and Georgia. And we're going to focus on the state of Georgia because Georgia is a Trump state, and yes, it's closer, and yes, it's becoming a swing state. All of that is true, but Jon Ossoff won in 2020 after Biden's victory. He won in a runoff election and he was elected to a full term. So his term is coming up to an end in 2027. Now, in Georgia, Republicans are going to have to play their cards right because Georgia is becoming a swing state. And even though Donald Trump won it, it is shifting heavily to the left. It probably will be a Democrat state in the future. The Atlanta metro area is growing very quickly. A lot of transplants from the Northeast are moving down there, and it's just shifting the state into the liberal column. Right now, it's in the swing state column. And I do believe that Jon Ossoff is a very vulnerable Democrat. And I don't know who the Republican candidates could be, but they're going to have to play their cards right. And hopefully under John Thune and Trump, they'll play their cards right. And you very well could see the state of Georgia give us a Republican senator probably by less than 1% or 1 to 2%. And especially if Brian Kemp runs, I do think that would actually help him in a state like Georgia. He is a popular governor down there. So we're just going to have to wait and see who the Republican candidates are, who decides to take on Jon Ossoff. But if someone like Brian Kemp runs and they have the endorsement of Trump and John Thune and the right funding, you could see Georgia flip Republican. And finally, the grand showdown is going to take place in the state of Michigan. This is going to be a very interesting state because Michigan will once again be an open seat because Gary Peters came out and said he is not running for another term. I don't know what's going on in the state of Michigan, but it seems like a lot of their senators are just deciding to not run again. I think that's just could be a coincidence or it could be something deeper. I'll let you make that decision for yourself. But in the great state of Michigan, it will be an open Senate seat again. So this is a chance for the Republicans to get in there and potentially pick up another Senate seat, but it's going to be tricky. The Michigan GOP is really incompetent. You do have a more competent RNC. Hopefully John Thune will do a good job. Trump will probably do a few rallies in the state of Michigan to get out his supporters and drum up some support in the rural regions of the state. He'll try to keep the same coalition that propelled him to victory in 2024. But ultimately, this is going to be the closest state, and if it's a Democrat favorable environment, it absolutely could shift Democrat. But as of right now, if Trump keeps his popularity and his approval, you could see Michigan give us a Republican Senate senator, and that would mean Republicans would have a 55-seat majority that would in effect be a rhino-proof majority as well. So the only way this can happen, folks, is if you get out and vote, but this is a very far out prediction of what 2026 could look like. Thank you for listening to my video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell down below and comment what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, and what you would do differently with the map. So thank you all for listening, and until next time, Politics Enhanced out.